In the vast, frozen wilderness of Siberia, a story began that would shake an empire to its core. This is the story of Grigori Rasputin, a man who clawed his way from a humble peasant village to the opulent halls of the Russian royal palace. He was a wanderer, a mystic, a man who claimed to speak with God. As he traveled, tales of his supposed healing powers and hypnotic gaze spread like wildfire, painting him as a starets, a holy man with a direct line to the divine. But was he a saint or something far more sinister? His reputation eventually reached the desperate ears of Empress Alexandra Feodorovna. Her only son and heir to the throne, Alexei, suffered from hemophilia, a terrible disease that made even the smallest scratch a life-threatening event. Doctors were powerless. The royal family lived in constant fear. Then, in 1905, Rasputin was summoned to the palace. During one of Alexei's severe bleeding episodes, Rasputin simply sat with the boy, prayed, and spoke in calming tones. Miraculously, the bleeding stopped. From that moment on, the empress saw him not as a man, but as a savior sent by God. Her faith in him became absolute, unshakable. Rasputin had found his way into the heart of the Russian Empire. With the empress's complete trust, Rasputin's influence grew exponentially. He was no longer just a spiritual advisor. He became the shadow emperor. The Tsar, Nicholas II, was often away at the front lines of World War I, leaving the empress to manage domestic affairs with Rasputin whispering in her ear. He began to meddle in politics, convincing the empress to dismiss ministers who opposed him and appoint his own loyal followers. Generals were fired. Military strategies were altered, all based on the whims and visions of this mysterious Siberian peasant. He held the fate of a nation in his hands, and his grip was tightening every day. The royal court transformed into his personal playground, and he was the puppet master pulling all the strings. While Rasputin enjoyed his newfound power, the Russian people grew to despise him. Whispers in the frozen streets of St. Petersburg turned into shouts of outrage. How could this debauched, uneducated peasant hold such sway over their rulers? Rumors of wild parties, corruption, and orgies at the palace spread like a plague. He was accused of being a German spy, a dark sorcerer, the mad monk who was driving Russia into ruin. The nobility, stripped of their influence, saw him as a national cancer that had to be cut out. Newspapers published scathing cartoons, depicting him as a demonic figure with the Tsar and Tsarina as his puppets. The hatred for Rasputin became a symbol for everything wrong with the crumbling empire. The storm was gathering, and it was centered directly on him. The animosity reached its breaking point on a freezing December night in 1916. A group of powerful nobles, led by Prince Felix Yusupov, lured Rasputin to a palace cellar with the promise of a late-night party. They fed him cakes and wine laced with enough cyanide to kill several men. But Rasputin just kept eating, talking and laughing, seemingly unaffected. In a panic, Yusupov pulled out a pistol and shot him in the chest. Rasputin collapsed. As the conspirators prepared to dispose of the body, he suddenly leapt to his feet, roaring with rage, and attacked them before staggering out into the snowy courtyard. They shot him again and again. They beat him viciously with a club. Still, he fought. Finally, they bound him and threw his body into the icy Neva River. When his body was recovered days later, the autopsy revealed a horrifying detail. He had water in his lungs. Even after being poisoned, shot multiple times, and beaten, he had still been alive, fighting for his life under the ice. The legend of Rasputin the Unkillable was born. But the most chilling part of Rasputin's story was yet to come. A final act from beyond the grave. Shortly before his death, he had written a haunting letter to the Tsar. In it, he prophesied his own murder. He wrote that, if he were killed by common peasants, the Tsar and his children would rule for centuries. But, he warned, if he were killed by nobles, by the Tsar's own relatives, then the entire royal family would be wiped out within 2 years. His murderers were nobles. Less than 2 years later, in 1918, the Bolsheviks executed Tsar Nicholas II, Empress Alexandra, and all 5 of their children in a cellar, bringing a bloody end to the 300-year Romanov dynasty. Rasputin's final, terrifying prophecy had come true. From Siberian mystic to the ghost that haunted an empire's final days, the dark legend of Grigori Rasputin remains one of history's most fascinating and unsettling tales. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as chilling as I did, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into history's darkest mysteries.